Apple has launched its latest products, including the iPhone 14, Apple Watch Series 8 and the Airpods Pro Series 2. Ibrahim Sani is on location at Cupertino to cover the story.
Thanks to my colleagues in Bukit Jalil. So I'm reporting from Cupertino, California, here in the United States after attending the Apple special event. As we all probably have seen and heard, Apple has launched 3 new classification of products, the iPhone 14, the Apple Watch, as well as the AirPods Pro 2nd generation. Let's start off with the iPhone 14. The market segmentation for the iPhone 14 is still consistent with the previous iPhones, with 2 classes of the iPhone 14s being announced, the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. That is of course targeted towards Pro Max users and Pro users, largely because of the higher intensity of the camera capabilities running on the A16 Bionic chip, and of course with the new lower light capabilities of the camera, as well as the 48 megapixel that has been introduced for the first time ever on an iPhone model. And of course the price point of this is actually consistent with that of the iPhone 13. Much touted previously for the price increase of the iPhones was not seen in this year's announcement for both the classification of the Pro class as well as the base class. The iPhone 14 announcement came at a time when iPhones crossing over the 15-year anniversary of their first iPhone launch back in June 2007, and with this the iPhone 14 is going to target still the Pro users, including that of movie makers and professional photographers. But what we saw last year was that the desire for the iPhone 13 to be used by professional movie makers might not necessarily get the garner or support from movie makers per se. So I don't know whether the iPhone 14's better camera is going to be able to target that group of movie makers to start adopting using iPhone as the primary tool for making movies. That's for the Pro class. For the base class, the iPhone 14 and as well as the iPhone 14 Plus, it's also quite interesting because the price point is still capped at the same price point as the iPhone 13, but unlike the Pro models running the A16 Bionic chip, the iPhone base classes are running on the A15 chips instead of the A16. They're running on the A15. Now, that's of course still a good chip. And of course, what we're talking about of 4 nanometers that was seen in the iPhone 6, so the A16 chip, for instance, is still developed by TSMC, or the Taiwan Semiconductor Company, which is also made available to all the other competing products of Apple, including that of Google and the Android devices. So all the other manufacturers can still produce very fast, very small chips, but that is something that is not seen for the general speaking of the A16 and the A15 chips. Okay, for the base model, we're looking at the introduction for users of the older iPhone models to start migrating into the new base models of the iPhone 14. Again, consistent with the previous iPhone classes. So those are the kind of elements that we see for the iPhone 14 4 types model launch. Minor updates, generally speaking, but for the base models at least, but for the Pro models, there are 2 big things that we need to think about. Number 1 is of course the dynamic island introduction, where they use the UI UX capability of the notch and try to amalgamate the kind of notifications that we normally see for the iPhone launches, for the iPhone users. The dynamic island did get an interesting gasp from the audience, and of course this has not normally seen 2 gasps in the auditorium. The second gasp is of course when the iPhone models, the iPhone 14 models, will not come with a SIM card tray, at least for the US based models. So that is a second gasp. I've been to this kind of events for a few times now. Not normally do I see gasps coming in from the audience. So for this event to see 2 gasps, it's actually quite interesting. Okay, that's for the iPhone launches. Now, we move on to the Apple Watches. The Apple Watch Series 8 was introduced, and of course this is very consistent with the type of previous series models that was introduced before this. It is still targeting towards people that are high in demand when it comes to Apple Fitness, want the best out of their watches, and the price point is actually quite interesting because it's consistent with the previous models as well. Now the Apple Watch SE, however, sees the intention for Apple to try to target the segment that might not necessarily have an Apple Watch just yet. Why? Because the previous SE model was priced at about $279, something like that. Now it's priced at $249, even $229, right, for some models. So this actually makes it clear that Apple's intention of trying to get more people to use Apple Watches is there, especially so when it comes with some of the fitness capabilities and fitness features inside the Apple Watch. So on top of Apple trying to get a lot of people to use their iOS devices, they now want to get people to use all their Apple Watch devices as well. So they got the main market, which is the Series 8 model, and they're trying to target the affordable market through a lower price point of the Apple SE. They're trying to get the most out of it. But one thing that's for certain, or stealing the limelight, is of course the Apple Watch Ultra. Generally speaking, the Apple Watch Ultra wants to target two main components, according to Apple. First, of course, the long-distance marathon runners, as well as the second segment, which is the pro divers or even recreational divers. So people like myself, where I dive every so often, I don't normally bring my Apple Watch because this kind of Apple Watch cannot withstand the kind of depth that is needed. So one thing interesting is that we're looking at the ability for the Apple Watch to be used as a dive computer through the introduction of the Apple Watch Ultra. The Apple Watch Ultra is rated down to 40 meters or 130 feet. It has a watch face of 49 millimeters, larger from the previous model of 45 millimeters. It has the capability of dim as well as full brightness at 2000 nits. They have a compressed watch face to allow for more computational capabilities to be read under extreme circumstances, say for instance underwater, or if you're running through a Sahara Desert marathon, for instance. And one thing interesting is that it is also very good to be used for marathon runners because of the GPS capabilities. Now, what this means is that they're trying to target those extreme athletes that are using current watches out there in the market, for instance Garmin watches. So can they get people who use Garmin watches to migrate and now use the Apple Watch Ultra device? That is a certain key feature that they need to think about. Now there are some pulling factors to this. Number one, because of the integrated user interface as well as the UI UX that is capable to be used when it comes to the Apple Watch device, this allows for folks to be able to use the Apple Watch Ultra as a real serious machine for extreme runners and extreme divers, and of course recreational divers, and that will definitely take those that is coming in from the Garmin users to actually start using the Apple Watch as an extreme sports machine. Another thing that we need to think about is the price point, because a lot of people were speculating that the Apple Watch Ultra, previously rumored to be Apple Watch Pro, is to be priced very high at about 1,000 USD, for instance. But when they announced it just now, we saw the price point is actually quite low, at 799. And I don't know how much that translates to in ringgit eventually when it launches in Malaysia, but generally speaking, at 799, to provide this kind of depth and detail enables Apple to actually entice those that are currently using Garmin watches or all the other stuff that is available in the market to start using the Apple Watch Ultra as a primary device for extreme sports. And of course, that is the key three elements when it comes to the second class of products that they launched today, which is the Apple Watch Series 8, the Apple Watch SE, as well as the Apple Watch Ultra. Okay, Finally, we move on to the AirPods Pro second generation, running on the H8 chip, or is it H2? I'm not too sure. We're looking at transparent adaptive capabilities of the AirPods itself. They have a new tip, which is the extra small size, which is suitable for those within the Asian population or children. Previously it was large, medium and small. Now we have extra small. So and having priced at about $250 is actually quite competitively priced, and this will perhaps try to entice those that have not yet adopted for an AirPods to buy their first AirPods ever. Okay, so generally speaking, those are the kind of products that have been launched for the fall period or the autumn period here in the US, but of course this enters towards the whole notion of how people will shop for the products entering towards Christmas, because we all know that during Christmas people are going to buy products quite extensively, either as gifts or as a reward for themselves. And as per normal, we always ask whether or not the supply is going to be made available, especially for tertiary markets like Malaysia. Now, we've had numerous reports of semiconductor supply chip problems, as well as supply disruptions, not just on the iPhones, but all the other electronic devices. So we don't know whether or not there will be some supply chain disruptions for Malaysia for all these type of products. Remember, we're not talking about just one classification of products, we're talking about many. Let's say, for instance, the iPhone, there's 4 classes. The Apple Watch, there's 3 classes. And the AirPods Pro, 1 class. So we're talking at about 8 different types of SKUs that needs to be delivered to a market like Malaysia. We're not even touching on the fact that there's various colors and various storage devices. So imagine the kind of permutations that a company like Apple has to sort out when they want to send all these devices across to tertiary markets like Malaysia. A rather far-flung market, if you think about it, especially if you're operated out of Cupertino in America. Okay, I'm going to be bringing you a lot more analysis as well as conversations surrounding this Apple event. But for now, those are the kind of updates that I can share with you today. This is Ibrahim Sani reporting from Apple Park, Cupertino in California.